Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagenow. Thank you for joining us. We are back here in studio after our holiday absence. Your host here has kind of forgotten how to run all this, so bear with us if this sounds especially clunky today. This is already take 2 or 3 of even trying to get play started on the recording. So John and Victoria are here. They've already had a chance to laugh at me off air, and now they have a chance to laugh at me on air. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Here to serve.
Okay. Now, our listeners, John, got to hear from you after Christmas with your year-end tax changes episode, but that was actually pre-recorded. So this is our first time back on the microphone for the new year. And so it's good to have you.
Did John cover the 7% discount I'm now getting on diapers?
No, we didn't get there. Did we? Or did you may have mentioned that. Maybe you didn't care.
Anyone buying diapers regularly, the sales tax dropped off.
Right.
So
Yes.
now your diapers are tax free. So
I forgot about that.
Well,
saving me some money that'll go back toward my eggs and milk.
As good capitalists and conservatives, we really only care about our own bottom line. So no, that wasn't covered.
Yeah.
Fair.
Victoria, you have been my go-to source on keeping up with what's going on in Congress. How many votes are we up to? As of this recording, are we... I have lost track of the number of times that the U.S. Congress has voted on a new speaker.
I think 6.
6? Okay.
I don't know, but I mean, 14 minutes from now, the House is coming back into session.
Well,
so
people are asking me about it. I'm like, I'm not watching that garbage. But anyway,
I do watch that garbage.
Yeah,
I'm that lame.
It is.
I would do pay-per-view for this garbage, actually.
I usually kind of try and warm us up with some fun stuff, but I guess I'll just drop my hot take right off the bat. It is such a bad look because what we're trying to, at least as a party, convey is that we can govern. And if you can't even elect a speaker to preside over the chamber, it's pretty tough to make that assertion. So, John, I know you're a big Kevin McCarthy fan. So, do you got any hot takes you want to drop on the Kevin McCarthy fiasco?
I'm not a McCarthy fan, but I think you're absolutely right. I don't quite understand this because and I understand why conservatives are standing up and voicing some concerns, but you have a Democrat in the White House, you have a Democrat-controlled Senate. There's not much that probably can be done, and so as much as I dislike McCarthy, I think the image of the Republicans looking incompetent and can't being able to really function or govern. And my question would be, why didn't conservatives stand up when they had all three, House, Senate, and the president?
Yeah.
Why not then challenge the establishment then?
Yeah.
And so
they did. I don't
not to this level though.
No.
Not
Well,
to this level.
So what happened last time? As a former congressional staffer who was working for a member at that time. Kevin McCarthy should have been the speaker last time, if anybody remembers that. He was the heir apparent after John Boehner and did not have the support then of the caucus, which is when Paul Ryan emerged and then became speaker. And so I guess now Kevin McCarthy thinks it's his turn.
But there's a dime's difference between Ryan and McCarthy. I mean, they're both in the Bush-McCain, Romney.
Philosophically,
yes,
absolutely.
So they're not.
Philosophically, yes. How they treat
not,
members individually, very different.
I think, there's a couple other interesting angles to this that has been covered somewhat, but it's interesting that Kevin McCarthy has the pretty unflinching support of President Trump.
Yes, yeah.
And that still isn't moving these members that are the holdouts, which I think is an interesting dynamic because the narrative would have us believe that the conservative wing of the party is beholden to President Trump, and yet that doesn't seem to be moving them right now. So I don't know that I've got any other takeaway than exactly that, is that maybe President Trump's grip on conservatives in the party isn't what has been reported.
I think it's weakening because he's had a few disastrous things that have occurred, and then basically him siding with McCarthy is seen as betrayal to the America First populist conservatives.
Well, and in that same breath, practically, he's attacking Mitch McConnell and Mitch McConnell's wife in a fairly racist manner, frankly.
Yeah.
And that was his former DOT secretary,
right,
mind you. So I just don't. It doesn't seem like, okay, in one breath we're going to try to help unify by endorsing Kevin McCarthy, and the breath prior we're attacking leadership.
Well, I'm not on Truth Social, so I have to take your word for it. But actually, I did see the tweet. I just thought I'd dunk on Truth Social for a minute. But no, that's right. It does seem to be weakening. The other thing that you talk about, the governing aspect of it, if you don't have a speaker, the members aren't sworn in, you don't have committee chairs, which is a big deal because there's a lot of run up that a committee chair needs in a committee to get organized to do business. And some of the staffing hasn't been done at that level. So this Congress, even if they resolve this today, is going to take some real time to get spun up. Now, we know that a Republican Congress with a thin majority is not going to be passing a lot of big bills that are going to make it to the to the president's desk. I mean, they're still one out of three here, and maybe that's what we need is just a Congress that doesn't do anything for a couple of years. I guess at some level I would accept that, do no more harm.
What's the opposite of progress?
Right. Well,
Congress.
Yeah. Nice. So maybe that's okay. What I really want, I guess, apart from all of that, is I just want the investigations. And so whatever we got to do to get through this fiasco and start getting some people in these committee chairs and start asking these hard questions. The latest one would be some of the Twitter files and what's come out from that. The CIA, FBI, if you're listening, collusion with Twitter. Some of the other things that have gone on in our country that have been swept under the rug for the last 2 years. I want that. So we need to get going. And it is time for these folks to figure it out, whether it's Kevin McCarthy or anybody else.
I think this is why people are sick of Washington. I mean, because it's just, the whole thing is broke. And it just, it's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
I mean,
the one thing out of this that I do kind of like is that it's being done out in the open.
Yes.
And that is refreshing, is that these squabbles that is always in the back halls of Congress in these smoke-filled back rooms, we're getting to watch it, or Victoria's because she's watching, is on live TV. And the speeches and the comments is all right there for the world to see. At some level, that democracy in action is a little bit refreshing, as ugly as it might be.
But I would like to see some of the conservatives put out a statement or a manifesto, or maybe they have, I haven't seen it, but just of some of their grievances. And then so it just doesn't look like stonewalling. I mean, there needs to be, I think, a more organized opposition if this is, but I mean,
Victoria's like, wait, how do I say this?
There are some concerning historic allegations against Kevin McCarthy that are out there that are unsubstantiated, that I would be hesitant to even repeat out loud. But I think that there actually are some pretty real grievances that folks have with him. And frankly, he has ruled as their leader with an iron fist to such an extent that it's made a lot of members upset, I think, particularly those on the fringe, which is now just solidified those no votes. But conversely now, at least according to Representative Crenshaw, we've got another group forming that is a no to anyone but McCarthy. Yeah. So this is going to be very, very interesting because I think you're looking at a potential standoff. And my very, very bold prediction at this point in time, and I probably am going to be wrong, but if I had to gamble on it, which you can't legally do, but you can buy stock, would be Steve Scalise would be that kind of compromise candidate. He has not generally treated the conservative members with as much maybe contempt is the right word as Kevin McCarthy has. So I think that he could do what Paul Ryan did potentially and be that unifying
Yeah,
person.
but Paul Ryan also helped torpedo a lot of Trump's agenda, and so I don't trust any of them from at least my philosophical perspective. So I think Scalise is in the same boat of that Bush, McCain, Romney wing. So I don't
have better feelings towards Steve Scalise, but yeah, I guess my prediction. Which, I mean, it doesn't cost us anything. I think Kevin McCarthy figures it out. I think he's going to have to make the concessions and let the pressure build, which is what this is. This voting over and over isn't some bona fide hope that someone changes their mind. It's building pressure, which is how legislatures work. I think somehow he's going to pull this out.
Well, his staff thinks so because they already moved into the office.
Yeah, I know. You know, the other interesting thing that's unique to Congress, and it's not the case in Iowa, is that the speaker doesn't need to be a sitting member. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if they would ever actually do that, but the one name that was floated that I thought made a lot of sense was Lee Zeldin, the former member of Congress from New York that lost that gubernatorial race. And I think we mentioned this before, New York is actually where Republicans got a lot of their wins. If you look across the 50 states in this election of the movement between the 2020 results and 2022, New York State had the biggest shift toward Republicans of any state in the union.
Speaking of.
And so I think that's an interesting one. Former member who technically I think is still seated because they haven't been able to swear anyone in yet, but just a thought. But I doubt that would actually happen. That would seem a little aggressive to take someone that wasn't a member to be speaker.
And speaking of New York now, pivoting slightly, what happens with George Santos and all of the crazy stories coming out?
Well,
this guy's like, didn't he actually say that he was using like fake Brazilian checks or something?
I have not followed the George Santos story.
It seems his whole life is a lie for anyone not following.
Son of former President Matt Santos, right? Neither one of you are West Wing fans. But anyway, Matt Santos was the president that got elected after Jed Bartlett in the West Wing, played by Jimmy Smits.
Okay.
It was actually, it all comes back to the West Wing. Anyway, yeah, that's interesting. Look, once you're elected and certified, you don't have to go anywhere. And right now, Kevin McCarthy needs his vote. So I think at least as long as the speaker election goes, I think George Santos is going to be a member of the Republican conference. We've talked a lot about this. I want to make sure that we pivot to a place where government works and a place where Republicans have been exceptionally effective, which is I think we need to showcase, which is Iowa, where Republicans have wide majorities, the governor, and the legislative session starts on Monday. And Republicans will come in and showcase what they've got and who won and get them sworn in, and it's going to work great, and they're going to be off to the races. Victoria has got all of her professional attire cleaned and ready to go. She's ready to charge up the hill. She's
not all clean.
Shine your shoes. Every Sunday night before the session would start, I would shine up my shoes. That was my thing. I'd get my shoes shined, and then it would, because they're nasty old shoes and wear off in a week, and then they'd look terrible after traipsing through the snow. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of like the first day of school. And so it's exciting. Are you excited to get started, Victoria?
Mixed feelings. I'm very, very anxious about having my children on the floor.
Yeah. Now, explain for our listeners why your children will be on the floor of the Iowa Senate on opening day.
I would speculate that most of our listeners would know, but maybe they don't.
I don't think they do, so tell them.
Okay, so my mother-in-law is going to be our new Senate president, and so my children will be there for her swearing in, which is extremely exciting. 2 heartbeats away from being governor. That's kind of incredible. Yeah. When you think about, the youngest of 6 children growing up, in the middle of nowhere, very, very rural, right on the border of northern Missouri and southern Iowa. But I guess anything's possible. The American dream's alive, and right. Amy Sinclair, my mother-in-law, is proof of that. So yeah, we'll have the kids there for that first day. My husband will be there. But my 3 little boys, let me tell you, 3 children under 5.
Yeah.
At one time is we're the traveling circus,
Yeah. I look, I've been there. I had little ones for much of my legislative career, corralling them and chasing them down. And it's frustrating as a parent to have to go through that, because as anyone with little kids knows, it's hard to corral them. But at the same time, the members and the staff, they generally like that. And it's fun to have them around, especially on opening day, because it's kind of chaotic anyway. So, but I'm really excited that Senator Sinclair, next Senate president, a personal friend of the organization, and I think she's just going to continue to be a great conservative champion. And I'm excited to see her in there.
But I think she'll still be involved with some big things too, which is a good pivot point, I guess.
Yeah.
I really think the first bill that hits the governor's desk is school choice.
I think that's probably right. That's the governor's probably top priority was during the campaign, will be in the election. And I think there seems to be a shared commitment from both chambers in the House and the Senate to get that done and to move on it quickly. And I look forward to it. It sounds like that, they're talking a big game. That's going to be a big bill that's in line with what the governor has wanted to do. So I'm excited about that. What else? Because we've got listeners, we got legislators, former legislators, but we have a lot of people that don't. What besides parenting, what does the first week look like at the legislature?
A lot of nothing generally for the first year of a General Assembly. Second year is you got to get quicker down to business because of the shortened bill filing time frame. But that first year of a session, that first week is a lot of just speeches and enjoying the smell of the fresh paper. Basically, it's the first day of school kind of thing, really.
A couple of things that I always enjoyed about the very beginning of session was the staff at the Capitol really cleans the place up nice. They polish the light fixtures and all of the stuff, and the building is just beautiful.
That's true.
It really is, to walk in there on opening day, or you go in the day or two before, and they, for the folks that actually work in the Capitol, they take that very seriously. It's a point of pride for them, and the building really shines. It's great.
I think my favorite thing actually is so I'm very weird, and I like to put everybody's faces on flashcards so that I know what they look like day one coming in, even if they've never met me, and greeting them with a good morning representative or good morning senator. And you can tell when you're the first person who said that out loud to them because you can see it in their eyes. Like, it's just like something changes. And there's like this light that comes in that they realize like the magnitude of what's happened and what got them here. And that they're doing a job to serve the people. So I really, really like seeing that moment. I've gotten to see it a handful of times, and I'm sure that I'll get to see that on Monday at some point.
The other thing that's a really big deal to legislators is the seat selection process in the chamber. Is they get to go through, and it's a seniority-based system to get to pick where they sit. And oh my goodness, the drama and the dithering over who sits where, and then inevitably somebody is number 100 that gets whatever is left, and they have to sit somewhere over in between two of the most partisan people imaginable. So you'll have a freshman Republican in between two liberal Democrats, or vice versa, and somebody's just left holding the bag. And you always feel really bad for them. But didn't happen to me in my first term. I had a horrible seat, but it was with some good people. So that's good. It's going to be fun. I'm also personally looking forward to, I'm going to try and make it down on opening day. My good friend, law partner, Bill Gustoff is getting sworn into the Iowa House after wanting to do that for many years. And so I'm going to go down there. I will not have floor access, but I'm going to go down there because I'm really excited to see him get to do this too. So, I guess, I thought we had almost nothing to talk about today, but here we have filled up most of our time. John, you've been working on several things. I mean, from a policy standpoint, I know you worked a lot on the ITR Foundation Property Tax Toolkit, and that may be the other big issue. But is there anything else that you're looking forward to seeing the legislature try and tackle this year?
I think one surprise issue, and I have no inside knowledge on this, but just my prediction for a surprise issue might be some sort of regulatory reform bill.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a possibility, and I think one thing we're going to be working on in the next couple of weeks is looking at a few state-based models of regulatory reform that that Iowa could potentially use. But I think that's one issue that's still out there that we need to address. And I know Governor Reynolds has hinted at possibly doing reg reform. So
yeah, I think there's going to be some interesting things I've picked up. I don't have any inside knowledge of what, but I think she's going to have some really interesting things in her speech that she's going to lay out this year, it sounds like. And we can talk. I think we should talk more about some of the regulatory reform things, in future episodes, because there's a lot of stuff there to do. And I've been saying for a couple years too, and I think I've said it on this show that, this is now going to be year 7 of unified Republican control in Iowa. And ESAs is a big conservative reform, but you're not always going to have the big landmark conservative reform every year. At some point, real, honest conservative action in Iowa is going to start being those other things like regulatory reform. And I don't want to diminish their importance, but the real honest blocking and tackling of what government should operate like in a conservative state, and starting to dig in and do some of those things. And I know, Victoria, you and I have talked about that in terms of our issue set for ITR, is that we want to start talking about some of those things and moving them forward.
Well, and look, I think we're already seeing with our new state treasurer, Robbie Smith, and our new attorney general, Brenna Byrd. I mean, day one going into office, both of them are already trying to find ways to look at more conservative policies after, having decades of liberal leadership in both of those offices. I know day one, Attorney General Byrd took some really, really big steps and signed on to some lawsuits, notably the student loan one. Yep. Yeah. So she's already shown that she's going to do some big things. So I think even beyond the legislature, looking at how some of these positions can be utilized to make this state better, I'm really, really excited for what the future holds, honestly.
I am too. I'm looking forward to being down at the Capitol a little bit this year and watching you in action, Victoria. But
I get to watch you in action again.
No. I'm going to be, I'm well skilled at drinking coffee and just talking and waving the banner. That's where I shine.
I think the house coffee's not bad, actually.
Oh, it got me
controversial
through a lot.
Opinion,
a lot of nights on that house coffee. It got better after they stopped storing it in the attic during the interim.
That's what gives it some extra flavor.
Builds character.
Yes.
So anyway, to our listeners that are coming into the legislature this year, and I know some of you are out there, congratulations on behalf of Iowans for Tax Relief and Iowans for Tax Relief Foundation. We look forward to working with you and want to be a resource for you if you have questions on how something works or just how the building operates for the new members. Feel free to reach out to Victoria or myself or anything, and we want to be helpful and help you be successful. So with that, I think we'll sign off. It's good to be back behind the microphone. We should try and do this a little more often. And
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everyone. So thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and say nice things about us. We appreciate it. And so with that, we will see you next time.